For craft number one, we are going to make some DIY Christmas soaps. That is just an empty fall one that I had. This one has a little peppermint on it. It is actually peppermint scented. This one has cranberries and it is a cranberry scented soap. They're the new designs that they have out this year just at the local Walmart, but I thought they looked a little bit plain and we could dress them up and make them look a lot better. So in order to get the label off, the hardest part truly was just getting my thumbnail underneath it, because once you did, they peeled off, and as long as you worked it nice and slow, it didn't leave any residue behind. It came off nice and clean, and the same was true for the back. Now here are some transfer stickers that I got off of Amazon, and they are kind of in a Victorian Christmas theme. I just think they're so cute. There's some on here that I don't really like, but here's a shot of the second sheet. And here's a shot of the third sheet. Not really a big fan of like little Christmas bears, but they're some people's things, so that's okay. My daughter thought they were cute. So I'm going to pick out some that will fit on the front of this and look really pretty. I settled for this Christmas tree for the first one. I really like these kids on the sleigh, and I think I might use this one too. So the first thing that I need to do is cut out the sticker that I want to use, and they do put these on here pretty close together, so you just have to be careful when you're cutting out with your scissors to be sure you don't cut into any of the other designs. But once I got that cut out, it's as simple as taking the paper off of the back, and it is also pretty easy to get apart. And then make sure that you have it centered before you touch your container, because you will see coming up here, if it sticks, it sticks. And then I did not have my transfer tool at the time of making the soaps, so I just used my fingernail and lightly rubbed all around the edges to make sure that I had it securely fastened onto the front before we peel the top of it off. And if you go to pull it off, just be careful to go slow. You can see I was just giving it a squeeze. These are pretty soft soap containers, so you don't want to push too hard. But I'm just going to grab a hold of the corner there and start lifting up. And it is coming off really nicely. And look how pretty that looks on there, just so cute. So the next one I'm going to do is the peppermint. And I decided on this one, I think that I want to use this little boy and girl on this little sleigh. I just think it looks really cute. And I think it'll be nice with the background of the white soap as well. So we're going to do just the same. We're going to peel off the back and put it on the front. And see, I dropped it on there, and I was very lucky on this one that it didn't stick. And then I want to get it at a slight slant so it kind of looks like they're sledding down the hill. Let me give it a little rub with my fingers. Get that one peeled off. And then I thought that it needed a little something up in the upper corner. So on the sheet of stickers, I found a little Merry Christmas word. And so I'm going to stick that on there kind of at a slant as well. So it just fills in that little bit of a gap. You could leave this plain at this point. It still is really cute. But I think it just adds a little something by putting the little Merry Christmas up there. So there's soap number 2. And on the third soap, I am going to take some of these berries that I got. Oh gosh, I've had these for quite a long time. I think I got them at Joann's Fabrics on clearance one time. And they're not the foam beads that are inside. They're just like a solid plastic bead. And I'm going to cut all of these off as close as I can up to the tip. And then I'm going to open up the soap container. And this one, as you can see, already has the soap in it. And this is actually the one that is the cranberry scented. And I'm going to stick these down inside. I think I had a total of 5 that I decided to put in here. And then I'm just going to use the pump section of the soap to try to push these down in there. I kind of wanted them to float down inside the soap a little bit, but because these little balls are very light, they just wanted to float to the top. And by the time all was said and done and they floated back up there, they actually still look really cute, because it's like, it just looks like cranberries in the soap. Instead of having it on a sticker on the outside, you have them on little berries on the inside. And after looking at my transfers, I thought this little girl with the Christmas tree would look really cute on there. I did kind of look at this one too, but it just wasn't really the look I was going for, although it is cute. So I decided to go with this one. So we're going to get her put on there. And see how I pulled it off right there and half of it stuck? So really carefully, I matched it back up, and luckily I got it matched up to where you couldn't even tell that I had actually torn part of that off of there in the beginning. But the bummer was it wasn't centered the way I wanted it to be. It was off to the left just a little bit further. So I found this little gold star and I decided to stick that one on just to kind of counterbalance the discrepancy in not having it centered on there. And it still turned out super cute. So I'm just going to rub her down, and then I am going to get that pulled off and show you how pretty this one ended up looking. And these are so simple to do. If you went on Amazon and just looked for Christmas transfer stickers, this is a great project you could even do with young kids to dress up soaps for their own bathroom. Now, one of these soaps, I thought it would be cute to put a little embellishment on. And so I'm taking one of these greenery looking pipe cleaners that I got at the Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to cut a piece off a little bit longer than I need. So the overlapping pieces I can just wind onto itself to make the wreath. And then once I get that into the shape that I want, I was kind of contemplating, do I just want to put it around the rim? But I thought, I don't really like that. I kind of think the soaps that have almost the dangling charms off the side look really cute. So I grabbed some of this gold ribbon and I just started winding it throughout the whole wreath. And I did tack the very top of it with a little dab of super glue, a little dab of hot glue. And as I got around, they weren't quite as even looking as I wanted. So the nice thing about not gluing it anywhere except for your starting point and ending point is you can adjust it as needed just to make it look the way you want it to look. So I did that. And then I put a dollop of glue there and finished it off, cut off the excess and glued it down. And I need to get one of those silicone fingers because I'm always getting hot glue on my fingers. Now I wanted to see if it would look any better with the ribbon on it like this, and it was even worse for me, and I definitely decided I was going to make it into a hanging charm. So I got a piece of jute twine and I put it on there, and it just wanted to twist naturally because of the way it was wound. So I just went with it and twisted it, and this is what it looked like, and I thought it ended up looking really cute. So here are my 3 finished soaps. Let me know down in the comments which one is your favorite. It's kind of hard for me to decide. I like them all in their own, each unique way. So craft number 2 that we're going to do today, I found these round tissue boxes at the dollar store. And then this is a piece of Christmas paper that I got from the Hobby Lobby. And if you haven't watched my Christmas DIY crafting haul, I will link that down below so you can see all of the things that I picked up recently to work on for crafting. Now I'm just sizing this up to see where the tissue box lands, if I want to go from the top down or bottom up based on the designs that are on the paper. And I decided I wanted that Santa to be on the tissue box. So I am going to use it from the top. And I'm just going to take my measuring tape, measure how long the tube is, and then I'm going to make my mark on my paper and take it into my other room and cut it with my paper cutter. Now, I need to get a better glue stick. These are just cruddy old little glue sticks that I've had forever, and I'm not really putting the glue on here for securing purposes permanently. It's just to make it tacky enough to stick to the tissue container while I'm working on the hot glue. So I'm going to put a little bit around the top and get the paper started that way. And you can see that you can still see the top rim of the tissue from the top down, and we're going to fix that here in a little bit. But then I turned it over and I gave a little bit of glue on the bottom. Then I unwound it as far as I could and just did a strip of glue on each side of the paper. And then I rolled it until it met on the other side. And for whatever reason, my paper cutter does cut very precise. And so I don't know if this tissue container just wasn't exactly the same distance or if I just got the paper on there wonky, but I did have paper covering it from top to bottom, but there was a little bit extra hanging over on the bottom as well as on the top. So I just took my scissors and I just snipped it off so that it was all even. And again, you're not going to see any of this by the time we are done. And it was very minimal, but you can see on the back now, the paper was not quite big enough to completely come together in the back, which is not a big deal to me. I'm just going to glue the ends down so that they're secured. And then I went to my ribbon stash and I found this really cute red ribbon that has some little sparkles on it. And it has almost like a sparkly stitchy design down the sides of it. And I'm just going to measure off a piece and I'm going to cut it to length. And then my finger slipped. So the old rule, measure twice, cut once. Oh, sometimes my fingers are just fumble stuff. And then I'm going to put a kind of a wiggle strip of hot glue down this so that there is some on each side of that seam so that the ribbon will adhere all the way down. And then I realized there was a little bit of a fuzzy at the top of the ribbon, so I got that snipped off as fast as I could and then got the ribbon down onto the seam, and then that way it is completely hiding the fact that the paper didn't come together in the back. Again, not that it really matters. It's going to be facing the back. But this is the fun part. Now, this is some yarn that I picked up in the yarn section at Walmart, and it is just this very thick, fuzzy yarn, and it just reminds me of like the little trim that you see on Santa's boots or on like Mrs. Claus's dress. And it just makes me happy just looking at it. So I measured how much I needed for the top, and then I cut another piece for the bottom. And then what I'm going to do is just start hot gluing it onto the top. And I'm going to put a bead of glue on the outside rim and then on the upper lip on the top of the container. And the reason why is because the trim is going to be not only on the side, but I'm going to tuck it up and over the very top too. So it hides as much as possible of the tissue container. So if you're standing there looking at it, you won't really see the difference between the paper and the tube, if that makes sense. And if you are interested in making one of these, you could use wrapping paper, or you could go to your local craft store and find some fun little Christmas prints. I found these tissue boxes. They weren't with the regular tissues in the dollar store. They were actually over by the cosmetics on an end cap. So if you want to find one of these at your local dollar store, that's probably where you'll find it. And they had several designs. But again, if you're going to cover it up, doesn't really matter what it looks like underneath. So I'm just going to give this a fluff, and my top rim trim was just a little bit too long. And so I'm going to snip that off. And then I'm going to put a little dab of glue in between the two. And then I'm just going to pinch it together. And by the time I was done, you couldn't even tell that there was a seam there. I fluffed it up and it looked just cute. Now on the bottom, we are not going to be wrapping the trim underneath because we want it to sit flat on the counter. So I'm putting a wider strip of glue around the base of the container. And I'm just going to basically do the same thing. I'm just going to slowly glue into sections the trim and get it all the way around to the other side. And as we get around to the other side and to the back of it, you will see that I was just a little bit short. I noticed that I had cut the bottom one a little bit shorter than I had the top one, but the best part is that little piece that I cut off of the top fit perfectly to fill up that little gap in the bottom. So nothing was wasted, couldn't even tell. And again, it faces the back, so no harm, no foul. So this is what it looks like when it's done. Of course, you got glue strings you got to get cleaned off of there. But I thought it turned out really cute, and this is what it looks like after you open it up and pull a little bit of the tissues out. I almost want to find a few more of these and some other fun papers and do a few more. And this is what the back looks like finished. So let me know what you think of that one. All right, on to craft number 3. We are going to be making some little Christmas tags. And what I wanted to do was get these into 2-inch strips. So I'm just using my paper cutter and I'm going to cut all the way across this piece of paper. There was a little bit of scrap because of course they're like 8.5 by 11, I think they are. And then I'm going to take them and cut in 2-inch strips going the other direction. So each one of our tags is going to be a 2 by 2. And I love this paper cutter. I've had it forever, but it just makes projects like this so much easier. And then if you don't have a paper cutter with a grid on it like this, I love it because I can take from corner to corner in each one of these squares and make my pattern for kind of the decorative edge that I'm going to put on these. You can use a ruler as well. But what I'm going to do is go from the first line down and make a mark, and from the first line in and make a mark on this one. And on the second one, I am going to take a mark from the first one in and the second one down. And I'm going to do this on each side. And now you can use scissors to cut these out, but what I'm doing over here on my paper cutter is I'm lining up that mark on the top and that mark on the side on the edge of my blade, and then I'm cutting. And it gives me a perfect line every time. And then you'll see this one kind of looks like a little house almost. So you could decorate the gift tag really cute that way. Now this one, the little lines are shorter. Remember, we just did the first line instead of the second one on the downside. So I'm going to cut off those little corners. And then this leaves me with a cute little tag like this. Now I prefer the ones on the right, and that's what we're going to work with here today. But if you like the ones on the other side, that's perfectly fine as well. And then I punched holes in them, and depending on how you want your tag to hang, you can punch your hole in the center or off to the side. And whichever side you want it to hang on, just be sure when you flip it over that the side that you're writing to and from on is the opposite of how you want your tag to hang. So I'm going to take another one of my transfers. This is just kind of a good way to use up a lot of these transfers in several different crafts. And I'm going to rub it on here. And then as I'm pulling it off, it wasn't coming off all of the way. So I'm going to give it another little rub. And this is what it looks like. Now it does look kind of plain there. So I thought, let's dress this little thing up. So these are pieces of greenery that I got from the Dollar Tree. In my crafting haul, I showed it has, I think, like 6 of these little branches on one pick for $1.27, which is a phenomenal deal. And then you can just take and clip off little pieces like this and use them on smaller crafts. So I'm going to put a dollop of glue right in the center, and then I'm going to kind of put each one of the bases of those so they're kind of forming an arch. And then these little sprigs I got at Hobby Lobby, a whole package of them. Now some of them, the little cones you can see were damaged on the tip, so I'm going to cut off just the 2 cones that weren't damaged, and we're going to use those. And then I'm going to cut off 3 of the little berries. And oh my goodness, I need to get a new pair of wire cutters. Mine are horrible. It takes forever to get stuff clipped off. I feel like I struggle more with this than anything else. So now that I have those clipped off, I'm just going to take a little bit of hot glue, and I'm going to glue down each one of the pine cones, one kind of pointed in each direction, similar to the greenery. And then once I have those down, I'm going to take those little berries, and I'm just going to touch them to the tip. I'm not really squeezing out any glue. I'm just touching them to the tip. And I'm going to start tucking them in so I can kind of make my little 3 cluster of berries that is pretty typical when you see them on crafts or on even on greenery picks that you buy. And then I'm going to get the third one kind of tucked into the center. There was a little bit of extra glue there, so I didn't need to glue that one onto the glue gun. Pull off our little strings. And now it's looking way better. It's not quite as snaky looking as it was before. Now this is some stretchable cording that I got at the Dollar General, And you can see there it's still $1. And I'm going to use this. I'm going to string it through. And then I'm going to make like a slip knot. And I'm going to cinch it down and pull it tight. And then in order to make it so that this little cinched part stays where I want it, I'm going to take a little dollop of hot glue onto the back of my gift tag. And then I'm just going to glue that down so it stays in place and it doesn't shift. And there you have it, cute little gift tag. Now this second gift tag that we're going to do, this is some more of that greenery from the Hobby Lobby. I'm going to make another wreath, if I can get my fingers on it. And I'm going to shape it and again leave the ends a little bit longer than I actually would need for the shape so that I can twist it onto itself. I got a different pair of cutters and they work a little bit better, but they're still not the greatest. You can see I'm just like twisting this around and around on itself to hold the wreath in shape. And now that I have it the way I want it, I'm going to take this gold stretchy cording that I got at the Dollar General, and I'm going to put a little dollop of glue onto the back. And then I'm going to take the gold cording and get it tacked onto there. And I'm going to pull out a piece. I never know exactly how much I'm going to need because it's just a guessing game, but I'm going to cut off as much as I think I need, and I'm going to start winding it in and around the outside and back in this little wreath, pretty much like I did the one for the soap charm. And the nice thing about this little cording is because it's really skinny, it's a lot easier to get the loops to land where you want them to the first time around. So once I get it all the way around to the beginning, I am going to take another little dollop of glue and I'm going to pull that cording taut and get it glued down to there. And then I will take my scissors and cut off the excess. And then now I'm going to turn it over, and onto the front side, I'm going to make a bow. So I'm going to do another shoestring type bow. Because this cording is stretchy and it's a little bit slippery, it's really hard to make two loops and tie the loops together like you can sometimes with ribbon. So just work the ends and the little bow section back and forth until you get them to look the way you want. And then because the tails never go in the same direction, I just take a little bit of glue and I push the one tail down so that it's going the same direction as the other one. I'm going to cut off the excess so they're the same size. Then I'm going to put a little dollop of glue onto the front side of the bow. And then I'm going to glue that bow down on there. And then I'm going to turn it over, and then I'm going to put a pretty generous amount of hot glue around the whole rim of the back side of this wreath. Flip it back over, and I kind of like the look of the bow off to the side, so I'm going to turn it just a little bit, press it down, and grab some more of that cording and string it through the hole like I did the previous one, and do a little slip knot so that I have another hanging tie. And I'm also going to put a little dollop on the back of this one and glue the knot down at the bottom so it doesn't shift. And then you could add a few little berries if you wanted, but I just kind of like mine plain and simple like that. Now I got these wood rounds at the Hobby Lobby, and we are going to put a couple transfers on here as well. I just think this little vintage Christmas girl looks very cute on this piece of wood. It really matches the theme. So I'm just going to pull the back off. And I did read, I've never done a transfer onto a piece of wood before, and I had read that you have to treat it in all kinds of ways, but these wood rounds are pretty smooth to begin with, and I had absolutely no trouble at all getting this to adhere on there, and it's put on there very well. It's not coming off at all. So look how pretty she looks. I just love that. So I thought I would try some gold rub and buff on here. Now, honestly, this is my first time using the rub and buff. I don't know why, but I've never used it before. And I wanted to just kind of put it all around the edge just to see what it would look like. And it was looking very pretty. Stuff on the little sheet there that I'm dipping my finger in looks a little bit brighter, but once you get it onto this piece of wood round, it really has kind of a very deeper antique gold look to it. And it's gorgeous. And I wish it showed up better on the camera, but it doesn't. And I didn't know what it would do on a transfer sticker. So I did a little bit of rubbing on the bottom there and it didn't hurt it at all. So I decided I would just go ahead and get the gold rub and buff put all around the edges of the sticker. And I think it turned out super, super cute. Now here's what they all look like. I did a few more off camera. But the great thing about these is if you are in a small space and have a small tree that maybe doesn't support a lot of weight, you could use these for ornaments for your tree. They're absolutely gorgeous. Or you could use them as present toppers. Either thing that you wanted to do would be just fine. But I think they look super, super cute. Do you have a favorite? So here's a wrap up of all the things that we made in this week's video. Of course, again, we have our soaps. I may go back and put a few more charms on these. I haven't decided yet. Here's our super cute tissue box. I think the soaps look so cute. I can't wait to put them in the bathroom. And then all of our charms. Thanks for hanging out with me this week. I'll see you next time.